Happy Monday, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on Up North Live Unscripted at 6:30. I am Maya Engel, and let's bring in our meteorologist, Joe, right away because, Joe, the day started off really nice. It was sunny, it was warm, a little humid, but then all of a sudden we got some rain and some downpours in some areas.
Yeah, and it's been the haves and have-nots, essentially, with rain. Gaylord at the airport has picked up 1.3 inches this afternoon. That's a lot, while other spots haven't even had a drop today. So, but where it is raining, it's really coming down at a pretty good clip. And you know why, Maya? You can feel it out there. Just how much moisture is in the air.
Definitely.
Yeah. So coming up a little later in Maine weather, we'll take a look at Gaylord. There's a flood advisory for that region until 7:45 tonight. And then what to expect going forward and how long this warm, muggy weather is going to last. I'll take a look in a few minutes.
Thank you, Joe. And we're going to start off right away with our top story of the day, a pretty unusual one, I would say. So Traverse City police are investigating after officers say a possible human bone was unearthed by crews working on the Grandview Parkway construction project site, and it was found on Friday near Oak Street around 4:30 p.m. So that was a single bone on Friday. Now, today, more were uncovered. That's according to Traverse City Police Department. So after the initial bone was found, crews stopped working and called the police, and the scene was secured for the investigation. Our Allie Baxter was out at the scene today and has the very latest on the story.
Unearthing a piece of the past.
They believe that they had found a human bone.
That's what construction workers on the Grandview Parkway project discovered last Friday at the site near North Oak Street. Multiple agencies were out the following Monday sifting through the dirt for more.
We then found some possible remnants of other bones.
Pete Simerson is the Traverse City Police Detective Bureau Captain. They're leading this investigation.
Usually by photo, we're able to tell pretty quickly if that is a human bone or a different bone. That's what we're doing. That's why all these teams of people are here.
Including an MDOT archaeologist and state police anthropologist. So how did these bones get here?
These are very old bones.
Captain Simerson says it's not uncommon to find bones when working at a construction site. It's possible the bones were brought in with dirt from a construction company.
They call them pits, and they bring in dirt to build roads to make sure they're smooth.
But if the bones were always here, why haven't they been found before?
Land there, but with the railroad.
As part of their investigation, police say they're looking at archives and the history of Traverse City.
They plotted it out, but they hadn't done anything, and the railroad didn't come up that far. But 14 years later, the properties had the railroad, and they had built that engine house.
Catherine helps with historical research at the Traverse Area District Library. These are maps of Traverse City and the site where the bones were found, showing a railroad in the late 1800s, but also potentially an indigenous burial ground.
Kind of a compassy thing there, and then there's the dots around.
There's a lot of speculation about the bones and possibly who it is.
We may be able to start coming up with some of those answers, but we're still in the very early stages of the investigation.
And for more on this story, let's bring in our Allie Baxter from the Content Center. Allie, thanks so much for joining us on Unscripted. What an interesting story today.
Right. This is definitely something that you don't hear about every single day, despite them saying, oh, this is pretty common. This can happen. But to happen here also in the midst of a multi-million-dollar construction project, I feel like is not a common thing at all.
And I think that was one of the most interesting things about your story, the fact that Captain Simerson did say that, oh, yeah, it's not totally uncommon for this to happen, because I certainly haven't heard a lot of stories about bones being found in projects like this before.
Right. And I think that was also just to say as well, like, we have no idea, because this is an active construction site, if the bones were always here, or it's like he said, it's a possibility that, when we have a lot of big construction companies coming in to work on a project of this scale, they're coming maybe from all parts of the state, and they're going to those places he referenced called pits to get some of their dirt to bring in to make that road really smooth. And so kind of their debate was, well, is this from one of those pits, or was this always here in the first place? So I think that was the number one question that they wanted to answer today is, has this always been here, or did this come from somewhere else and it was deposited here?
So do you know were all the bones found in the same general area?
I believe so. It is that area. The reference that they gave is North Oak Street and the Grandview Parkway. Really, we were able to stand along Bay Street today, and there's this like strip of grass there in between that and where they are doing the construction for the Grandview Parkway. And that is where they were. That was where they were excavating a lot of dirt today. That's where they were sifting through a lot of that dirt as well. So I'm not sure kind of, how big they're going to make that search area. Are they going to dig up more areas to make sure that they have everything? Something that was clarified to us today is that they aren't going to stop digging unless they know that they have gotten everything. So it's kind of a wait and see thing, just depending on what they find out there.
And we are reporting that they found possible human bones, but after talking with the captain and others, is it confirmed that they are 100% human bones, or do we not know that yet?
They won't confirm it 100%, but everyone says that there is a really good chance. They really don't believe this is animal bone of any kind. And I think that was another thing that they really wanted to go ahead and confirm today, like 100% is this human bone. And it seems to be just based on some of the information that they shared with us. They are very confident that this is human bone.
So the captain said this is still the very beginning of this investigation. Do you know what the timeline is or where things go from here?
So as far as the timeline goes, I feel like it's kind of hard to say depending on how much they get. But kind of the next steps are obviously looking at the bone that they got. They're working really closely with Western Michigan University. Western Michigan University has a specialized focus on anthropology. I know they also have a pretty big cold case and like forensics program as well. They also have different centers down there, so they work really closely with them. I believe those are the next steps, is sending some of those remains, some of those bones to Western Michigan to see what the experts there can come up with. But it seemed like they really had a lot of experts out there already today. I didn't realize that, MDOT and MSP had these archaeologists and anthropologists just on call to show up at stuff like this. I thought that was really interesting to know that you could specifically be that for these different organizations. And I think it goes back to the point that the captain was making, like, oh no, this happens. And it makes you think, how many times does this happen?
Yeah, it really does make you think that. And so, of course, crews had to stop working for the investigation. So where does that leave construction of the project?
So when I was down there today, it was just that specific site. We know that this segment is pretty long going down along Division, but that was the only spot where construction had stopped. It was still business as usual along other areas, but some of the workers there had completely stopped what they were doing. And even they were kind of curious sticking around today, seeing what more could be found, because they were the ones that originally found the one bone on Friday.
Right. Anything else you want to say about this story, Allie?
I guess I feel like it's pretty interesting. So they did find the one bone on Friday, but and this is something that law enforcement shared with us as well. They were trying to keep pretty quiet about it through the weekend, just because they don't want people to disturb this site in any way. They have had instances where perhaps someone would go up and try to start digging themselves, and they said that is not what they want to happen at all. They want to make sure they get the right people in there, the right experts in there as well to handle something like this. And so it was kept pretty quiet throughout the weekend so that no one would think that they could go ahead and jump in and disturb that site. I think it will be really interesting. Just there's a lot of theories out there right now of what it could be. Was it here in the first place? Has it been here since the Grandview Parkway was here? I'm honestly just really curious to see how close they can get to an answer and ultimately what they believe it is.
And we know that you will keep us updated on this. So Allie, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And another local story that we are working on today is some pretty exciting news for the Garden Theater in Frankfurt. So the theater will now be able to produce cleaner and cheaper energy thanks to help from the community. So the theater recently finished a project with a local company called CBS Solar to put solar panels on the roof, as you can see right here. And during the planning process, it was discovered that the roof needed some repairs. So to pay for the added costs, the theater transitioned from being a for-profit business to a nonprofit to be able to accept donations. And in response, the community came through. They helped raise more than $2 million. So here is the board president of Friends of the Garden Theater on what he had to say about this situation.
Early on, when we started to have some individual conversations about how passionate people are about the Garden Theater here in Frankfort and Benzie County. It's been here for 100 years. Many people had their first dates here, or maybe they brought their kids and now they're bringing their grandkids, and there was a passion out there to save the building again, and that became evident when we were able to raise the money to do so.
And they expect the solar panels to produce 58,000 kilowatts of energy annually, saving them money to spend on other resources for the theater. So that brings up our question of the day, which is, are you considering putting solar panels on your home or business? Right now, 25% of people say yes, 75% say no. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now to vote. I'm going to read a few comments we have on our Facebook post. So Carolyn says, not much use when snow covers them, especially living in the woods. Bart says, I'd love to have them in my yard, but not on my roof. Terry says, no, I have relatives that have panels on the roof, both in the deep south and east. Panels should be replaced, and they don't do much on the electric bill each month, so no. Lorene says, no, we looked into them, and we have to cut down many trees for solar power to be effective. Let's see. Lori says, yes, our cabin will run strictly on solar, propane, and wood. No on-grid living for us. Paul says, absolutely. We haven't purchased electricity since mid-January. Today, the AC is running, the whole house is fed, and the batteries are charging. So please scan that QR code right now to vote. And you can also leave a comment on our Facebook post or on this live stream. But before we take our first commercial break, I will put up our question of the day again in a few minutes. I want to play one more story for you that we were working on today. So the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians just completed the final phase of a new fish monitoring system, and it'll track Lake Sturgeon in the Manistee River. So here is Audrey Boucher with more.
Traveling down the Manistee River near the Rainbow Bend boat launch, you'll notice new signs along the shore warning boaters about research equipment crossing. Roughly 7 feet down is the passive integrated transponder array that was installed just last week.
And so what that'll do is, as our fish that are tagged swim over the top of it, it will energize that tag and tell us that a fish passed by this array that we put in.
This system helps monitor the success rate of the sturgeon traveling back up the river each spring to spawn. Jerome says it's important that these fish keep coming back.
We're trying to rehabilitate the population, kind of increase their numbers, and so it's one way. I mean, a fish matures at 13 to 17 years old, and so it's a long process before we can kind of see some of those success rates. And so we want these fish that came from the Manistee River, we want them to come back to the Manistee River as their home.
The pit tag array allows Jerome to monitor the fish remotely instead of using field workers. Adjacent to the Rainbow Bend, the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians also has a streamside rearing facility where 788 baby sturgeon are awaiting to be tagged and released in the next few months. This streamside facility has been around for 21 years.
We're pulling Manistee River water into a pole barn with minimal filtering of like heavy sediments and sedimentation, and then running it over top of the fish. We feed them 3 to 4 times a day, and then that water heads back to the river so that these fish are never coming off of the Manistee River water. When we release them in September, they know that river water and know kind of their food and where they're supposed to be.
Before being released, the sturgeon must grow 6 to 8 inches long. Roughly a week before release, these baby sturgeon will get tagged on the top side of their skin, which helps Jerome and his team track the fish.
Every time that fish is handled in the future, we get a unique number back, and we can see when that fish was handled, or if it was one of our released fish, or if it's a collaborative fish if we're out in Lake Michigan, because there's 3 to 4 other facilities in operation in Lake Michigan.
The pit tag array was put in collaboration with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, Michigan DNR, Fish and Wildlife Service.
It's one of the large goals of our management plan is kind of looking at the recruitment and success of the program. And so it's nice having it in place and can then now monitor for these returning streamside fish.
In Manistee, Audrey Boucher, Up North Live News.
Welcome back to Unscripted, everyone. Let's bring in Joe now from the Weather Center. And Joe, some areas are getting a lot of rain right now, others nothing. So what is the rest of the
Right. Fun, right?
Fun.
Forecasting. Yeah, some areas did have quite a bit of rain. In fact, enough where around Gaylord tonight we do have a flood advisory for about another hour. That's in effect till 7:45. Let's take a look. We'll go to downtown Gaylord. Here is what it looks like there. It's a lot better than what we had, I'd say, about a half hour ago. A lot of these cars were hydroplaning on the roadway there because of the amount of rain that came down. So here is that flood advisory. There's northern Michigan right here. It's the little green area right there. And there we are zoomed in. So this includes Otsego Lake, Gaylord. Again, a flood advisory that's not as serious as a flash flood warning, but some ponding of water on some of the roadways there. And this is what the airports have reported for rain. Now, if you look at this, you might not say, well, that's not too bad. But a lot of the heavy rain has kind of missed the major airports. You know, Traverse City has had some rain, heavy rain just south of town, but the airport only 0.04 of an inch. But look at Gaylord, 1.3 inches of rain today. And also Boyne Falls, almost 3/4 of an inch of rainfall. What's feeding into that is our dew point. Anything over 65 especially is just uncomfortable. A lot of moisture in the air, the higher this number is. And those are where our dew points stand right now. So this little system I'm going to show you here, see the low down near Chicago, and then this little black line is a trough. That is passing through. It's interacting with all that moisture. And so what that's doing is it's kicking up showers and storms this afternoon. Once we got kind of the catalyst, some heating this afternoon, there go these showers and storms. And none of them have really been severe, but they have dropped some heavy, heavy rain in a short time. This is a 2-hour loop. The last 2 hours, you can see that heavy rain from Cadillac back toward Ludington. This extends up toward the Straits area, right over Gaylord, where we, again, have that flood advisory, and then even up in the UP. We'll zoom in one more time here. There's the Upper Peninsula. So you can see some of the showers and storms there. What will happen tonight, a lot of this will wind down, but if you're east of I-75 over near Alpena, you may still have some rain in the morning, right there. Then a small chance for an afternoon shower or thunderstorm. We should get some sunshine tomorrow afternoon. And then pretty quiet weather taking us into Wednesday. It is going to stay muggy if you're wondering about that. We'll look at the dew points near 70 the rest of the week. So we'll stay on the muggy side of things, and there's our extended forecast. Warm too. This warm, muggy weather is going to stick around at least through the weekend as we look ahead there. So, yeah, some rain. I think we'll see less of that tomorrow, but it does remain muggy through the rest of the week.
Good to know. Thanks so much, Joe. We are going to take another quick break here in Up North Live Unscripted, but we'll check in with our sports director, Harrison Beebe, when we come back. Welcome back to Unscripted at 6:30. Let's check in with sports director Harrison Beebe live in our content center. And Harrison, I know you had a lot of fun this weekend screaming at a concert, so your voice isn't all there. So we'll keep this short, but what's going on in the sports world today? Oh,
Okay, sorry. Now I'm good. The sports world today. Well, Maya, have you paid attention to any of the headlines? Maybe you've noticed all those athletic competitions going on in Paris.
what?
Yep. So it's Olympic time once again. So that's got a lot of people locked in and paying attention to things going on over there for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. Allie Baxter is not a fan of my voice right now. She just kind of looked at me from across the.
Hey, there's only so much you can do.
Your throat was run over by a truck. So yeah, the Olympics are obviously pretty cool. Team USA women's basketball just had a huge blowout win over Japan. Let me go ahead and cheat and check. Yeah, that was it. But here was the fun stat I heard earlier today. The U.S. just passed 3,000 overall medals won at any summer or winter Olympics.
Wow.
And that's by far and away the record for any country for combined Olympic medals won. The next closest one is like 1,500. So the U.S. has doubled up medals more than any other country for summer and winter. So that's a pretty cool stat. And I don't really want to spoil things, even though they've already happened. There's some primetime coverage coming up on NBC tonight that'll feature some Americans getting some medals. But yeah, there's a lot of cool storylines going on over there, and we're just really getting into the heart of it now, 3 days into the 2024 games.
It's a really fun time of the summer. And of course, we have Tigers happening right now, and then some exciting Lions news today.
We did. Taylor Decker re-signed for 3 more years. I know that probably makes you pretty happy.
A little bit, yeah.
He is a key to that offensive line for the Lions, no doubt. And he just seems like a really great guy, too. He's a great player and a great role model and a great face for the franchise. When obviously old linemen for football don't get a lot of headlines and get talked about a whole lot. And Tigers-wise, it's interesting to know Jack Flaherty was supposed to make a start tonight against Cleveland. He was scratched from that. So he's rumored to potentially be in the trade deadline or be in the trade mix before the deadline tomorrow. We know Tarek Skubal has got a lot of focus with him being the best pitcher in baseball, but maybe the Tigers trade Flaherty instead of Skubal. Will be interesting to find out by tomorrow mid-afternoon.
All right, Harrison, we'll go rest your voice. We'll let this be all for sports for now. Drink some tea. We'll see you at 11 o'clock. Hopefully your voice will be a little better by then. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back in a few minutes.